Welcome back to another Sensei series. Today we're going to talk about 4 tips to instantly improve your solos, which you know about clickbait titles. Now I don't have some magic licks or anything like that here. These are ideas and mentalities that when implemented you'll start seeing the benefits right away. But of course, like anything, you do need to work it over time to see the maximum results. I've had a number of comments asking for some soloing pointers, so let's do this. 4 tips to instantly improve your solos. Number 1. Sing along as you play. What I mean by this is sing the notes as you play them on guitar, or at least try your best to do so. If you've never done this before, it can be a bit tricky, and you might find that your voice is just following what you play on guitar. That's okay. The goal here is to create an instantaneous connection between what's coming out of your amplifier and what you hear with your inner musical voice. The more you do this, the more you'll find that the sounds you create and the sounds that you envision merge together. When they've become one, you've reached the pinnacle of musical self-expression. Let's talk about the practical side of this. Guitar players as well as keyboard players are often guilty of overplaying. There's nothing preventing us from playing note after note after note for an entire solo, the musical equivalent of a run-on sentence. A horn player, on the other hand, can't do this. They need to take breaks for breaths. By singing along with our solos, it's going to force us to take little pauses to breathe. These natural stoppages can really help us get away from overplaying and improve our phrasing. Which ties into point 2. Treat your solo as a story. Let's think of a guitar solo as a chapter in a novel. The novel in this metaphor represents the entire song. Now in this chapter that is our guitar solo, we want to tell a concise passage that is important to the overall story arc of the song. The best novels, like the best guitar solos, don't have a single word or note out of place. And all the words are part of bigger sentences which present the author's ideas. Each sentence furthers the story while still relating back to the last idea. And great writing has beautiful flow to it, achieved by balancing short sentences with long sentences. You also might have different descriptive words, which add color to the story. And other times the story might call for very simple words and ideas. For dramatic purposes, you might repeat a sentence. You might open the story with a big exaggerated bend, or some other flashy lick, hooking in the audience for the tale you're about to tell. And your chapter might conclude with some big dramatic climax, or it might end with a cliffhanger. There are a lot of parallels between language and music. By treating our solos like a story, we create a more compelling composition for the listener. If you want to see this idea of a solo as a story in practice, check out David Gilmour's playing on Another Brick in the Wall. Check out John Frusciante on Californication. Check out Jimmy Page in Stairway to Heaven. For that matter, check out any iconic solo. Now, a great solo can be complemented by flash, but is truly built on musical phrasing. Point number 3, relax. Don't you hate it when people tell you to relax? Well, sorry, but that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. Do you ever notice that you feel like you're playing your best when nobody's watching? And as soon as you have an audience, you can't quite duplicate that thing that you were doing by yourself in your bedroom earlier? Not that thing. It's our natural tendency to tense up a little bit when we are the slightest bit nervous. As far as I know, this is a leftover trait from our ancestors who had to be ready to fight or run whenever a threat was around. But this is pretty useless when we're about to walk on stage and suddenly our muscles tighten up a little bit. Now this is totally normal. I found myself recording an intricate bit for a video that I just can't nail. And as soon as I stop rolling and turn off the camera, I get it first time. The reason is that there's no external pressure on me to get it right. The only real way to deal with this is to take note of it. Notice if your wrist isn't totally relaxed. Notice if you're holding your breath right before a tricky bit comes up, and make a conscious effort not to do those things. Eventually, being totally relaxed just becomes a habit. I should make a note here and mention that you can still play with very high intensity and stay totally relaxed. Stevie Ray Vaughan was the absolute master of this, though booze and drugs might have helped him with that at points, which I'm not condoning here. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Number 4, listen to your surroundings. It's very easy to shut everything else out and just focus on what you're playing. But the best musicians are always listening to the musicians that they're playing with. Making an effort to do so is going to benefit you in a number of ways. Okay, we're going to draw again from the metaphor that music is like a language from point 2. Playing with others can very much be a musical discussion. This idea is highly prevalent in jazz music. The piano player might play a chord or a motif, which can trigger an idea in the improvisation of, say, the sax player. By actively listening to the players you're playing with, you can pick up on these subtle nuances and use them as inspiration in your solos. You'll also be more locked into the rhythm, which is only going to make the music groove harder. And if you follow this series, you know that I'm all about the rhythm. By listening to your bend, you'll also hear the chord changes more clearly, which as a soloist you might feel inclined to highlight with your note choices. And trust me, playing the harmony is one of the big reasons that makes certain soloists stand out. Now the more indirect advantage of this is that it takes you out of your own head. You'll worry less about what you're doing and play more by musical instinct. If you've covered the fundamentals and put the hours into your instrument, turning off your brain can sound great. You often hear struggling athletes talk about how they're overthinking plays. Well, musicians can do the same thing. And it's a really cool feeling when you have a group of talented musicians letting their subconscious do the talking. It's almost like a single entity emerges from the individuals. The sounds become one, a free-flowing musical thought. Again, I'm not condoning drug use here. There you have it, 4 things you can do today that will have an instant impact on your soloing. Unless, of course, you've already been doing all these things, in which case just tell me to f*** off in the comments. Now, I don't really believe in short-term solutions. These are things that you want to be continuously thinking of as a musician. To contrast this video, the next installment in this series is going to be about soloing tips that take a while to implement, but are also really beneficial. Stay tuned, I'm still working on coming up with a nice, sexy clickbait title for that one. If there's a subject that you'd like to hear covered in a future Sensei series, please let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for input. And if you've made it all the way this far, why don't you let me know by leaving me a comment telling me what's one of your favorite solos of all time. I'm Samurai Guitarist. I've got new videos every week, so please stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.